2021 Town of Monroe Planning Board Workshop regular meeting. We actually didn't have our first meeting of the month, so this is combined. Noreen, would you please do the roll call?
Anthony Vaccaro is absent. Lisa McQuaid is absent. Bonnie Franson.
Present.
Jason Swinsky is absent. Jeff Manson.
Here.
John Allegro.
Here.
And Pat Shea.
Here.
Thank you.
With that, I'll point out the fire exits. They are located, there are two in the front of me, behind the row of members of the public. There is another, the main entrance, where we come in from the parking lot, and then there's another to this side of me, to my back right. With that, let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Welcome, Ward.
Hey, Ward.
All right, first item on the agenda is Meadow Hill. If you want to come up here to the table. DG. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I scrolled too fast. DG Management, my apologies. Keeping everybody on their toes. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. John Queenan from Lincoln Tully, engineer for the applicant. I think you're well aware of that by now with this project.
Never heard of you.
No, that's the way I usually like it. We're back before you. I think we've done quite a bit of work since we were last here at the June meeting. We've submitted revised subdivision plans. We've completed the traffic assessment report. We've submitted a revised landscaping plan. We updated the visual cross-section profiles. We completed our stormwater pollution prevention plan, and we submitted revised architectural plans and building footprint layouts. I think we've addressed most of the board's consultants' comments that have come through. I did receive comments tonight. We got a little more work to do in cleanup, but I think the main components of this application now are pretty well together. What I was hoping for tonight is to go through any of these items that you have questions on or you like to review further, and then hopefully if we could get started with drafting of a negative declaration for review possibly at next month's meeting, that would be what my goal would be.
Why don't we start then, normally we go first through our consultants' comments, so we'll start with Sean. And I actually have two sets of comments, I guess. Do you know which one you want me to pull up first?
Second, that's one sheet, is just the architectural comments.
Okay.
The one that you have up right now are my civil comments.
All right, why don't we start there then?
Sure. So comment number one, I noted just something cleaned up for one of the lots on the bulk table. John and I were discussing before the meeting whether or not the proposed grading would have to meet the 30% slope requirement or have to be deducted from the lot area. Actually, John, to update you, Ashley and I were just looking at the code. You can reduce the lot area to 7,500 square feet for the lot if necessary. So. Okay. It's a very minor thing, but I don't think it will affect the lot count or the lot layout, just clean up on the bulk table. Regarding the tree inventory, they did provide one as one of the sheets, but they didn't note what trees would have to be taken out as part of the improvements, so that'll just have to be noted. They did also provide a landscaping plan. So any difference, and Ashley can probably speak better to this than I can, any difference in number of trees to be removed versus proposed would have to be mitigated. Number three, I have a bunch of technical items on the SWIP that we received this month. I wouldn't say anything major, just trying to meet the permit and the design guidelines. Something additional for this, or that in addition to my comments this morning, I met with John Sherney regarding the proposed water quality swales that are shown along the backs of the curbs. And the sand filter that's proposed to treat the water quality. He had no objection to where those were located and their function, but he just requested that a drainage district be created to be able to maintain those improvements, My understanding is that the well testing is going to be completed maybe next week or the week after, right?
Correct.
So that, potentially have those results for next meeting. A couple other, minor things regarding the town road pavement section, the street lighting plan. They updated that to just one street light at the cul-de-sac. The traffic analysis, so Creighton Manning prepared a traffic analysis for the plan, for the subdivision. It didn't affect the level of service in regards to changing an A to a different letter. Actually, the Scunny-Monk Street will remain an A, and the proposed village road that this connects to will be a B in both cases as well. So, and just referred to the outstanding approval agencies, and I would have no objection to preparing a SWIP for review next month, and the board can choose to decide. SWIP. Sorry, I read SWIP and I was thinking neg deck. So, I would have no objection to preparation of a neg deck for review next meeting. And if we don't know the results of the well testing, or if the board's not satisfied with the traffic or the SWIP, then we can choose to put it off to the following month. So,
I think, and we could talk about this some more with the whole board when we get to all of our comments, but I think we need to go through the part 2 first, and just make sure that we've covered all our bases. Especially from my perspective, visual, I just want to make sure that's really buttoned down. One question with regard to the landscaping, did Karen?
I've not sent it yet, so my apologies, but
Okay.
We'll try to get comments for next month.
Yeah, so I definitely wanted to review it because she would really be able to speak to a combination of where the plantings are proposed, what the plantings are, and does it make sense given, the amount of soil present in those areas.
Sure.
So, yeah, I definitely want Karen reviewing it before we move
I
on.
do believe she did receive it. I believe Steve Esposito emailed her directly.
Okay, yeah, I don't know that we've gotten comments.
I haven't seen
so,
anything.
Yeah, so we'll follow up with her for sure. And I think to go through this fairly in terms of seeker is to really go through the EAF, again, just to refresh our memories, what was potentially of concern, and then to fill out the part 2 so that if there's any last thing that has to be done, it can be done as part of an expanded, part 3.
Correct.
At this point in the process, we're so far along, we haven't really, found anything to be so significant that, we felt the need to go in a pause deck direction. So I think it's definitely the other direction, but we need to make sure everything's covered.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think we did go through the part 2 briefly.
A while back.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to, I think I'd like to start moving in that
Yeah,
direction.
yeah, so I think we can focus on seeker for sure.
Okay.
So, did you go over architectural?
I didn't.
Let's just bring that one up quick. So that is this one? Garage unit.
A lot of it had to do with labeling of the garages and that the basements are non-habitable, especially since that goes towards the limit of the 2.5 stories per dwelling that's regulated in the zoning.
Okay,
And then just some other minor things that currently don't meet building code.
Okay.
Obviously that's not a planning board purview, but it'll show up on the renderings that you'll review. So.
yeah, I think in our requirements for zoning, we do have notes that we're supposed to include, and we're supposed to identify the maximum number of bedrooms, I believe, for
Right.
each of the units. So I think we want to look at things to the extent that we're putting a maximum on them. So when they pull a building permit, that's there.
So they do bedroom count lot layout plan.
Okay.
So we'll just confirm that the
Or-
architecturals match what's on the layout.
Right.
So,
Okay. Okay, so these were really kind of technical comments with regard to habitable space, et cetera.
correct, yep.
Okay. All right, Ashley, do you have comments?
Just a couple things. I did speak with John before the meeting, just some cleanup on the bulk table. One of the descriptions there, the architectural plans, changing the name to be consistent with the name of this project rather than Scunnamunk Road lot number. There's additional architectural details, specifically the color samples and the material samples. That's probably not really a seeker issue, but that's just something this board will need at some point when you're reviewing the architectural. Another issue which we've discussed a little bit was the open space. And I know Lot 1 is gonna be on Lot 1, but who's gonna hold the conservation easement? So the town board or an agency that's acceptable to the town board. So I don't know whether you wanna, if you've had those discussions yet with the town board or town attorney, but that's something to keep in your mind there.
Yeah, no, we should start that, because I also have to start the drainage district at this point, too, so.
I don't believe we've had comments yet from the planning department, from the county, right? No,
Back for either.
okay. All right, the village. I think Bonnie had maybe asked at the last meeting about the status of the village, or you were gonna be looking into,
So the,
Status of the
Yeah.
dedication.
The portion of the road
So
through
the-
which,
correct, the road in the village is approved. The map was filed. I believe the developer there has pulled permits to start construction. I don't know if he has done so yet already, but that has been completed. Bonds have been posted, so that work is probably imminent.
does the proposed road for this subdivision like taper or take into consideration the design that's
Yes.
shown on their approved plans?
Yes, what I did was I took the engineer's drawings and blended them into ours and made the roads match and matched grades.
You're satisfied with the way that comes
The-
together?
Road profile, just like John said, I think it matches the grade, but obviously the elevations match, but the grade going
Grade,
up continues at the same slope.
I think ultimately, I mean, we're all presuming they're gonna construct it, it'll be done, et cetera. But I think there needs to be some kind of contingency in the event this gets approved, soon, and they haven't started that road construction. What's the access? Are we conditioning this on there being a road? Or would you
Or-
the
construct
village
it?
road would have to be extended before you could start the construction.
Correct.
Of
Or,
the-
or if they're not ready, that's an approved plan that this applicant would then have to undertake with the village to get access to our parcel.
Yeah, I think that's what I mean. There
Yeah.
probably has to be, as we start to get to the end of the process, again, I don't know what their time frame is. I don't know,
I'm just told that they're ready, they're gonna go at any
Yeah.
moment.
So we need to build that into any approval. And definitely
I
a
don't know if
drainage
it- I don't-
district.
I don't know if the dedication has to be accepted yet, right? Just that some of the improvements installed.
I don't know, because I don't know that we want to get into a position where they're building and looking for C of Os on their subdivision, and that portion of the road is not up to whatever standards necessary. Like, what happened if suddenly I don't think it's going to happen, but what happens if it suddenly were abandoned and it's a partially completed road? So, and it's never dedicated, let's say, to the village. I think that's the other thing. They're offering it for dedication. Was the village going to accept the dedication?
Well, yeah, everything is an offering of dedication, so that always.
Oh,
binds-
unless they,
Yeah, unless they don't complete it, then the village isn't obligated to take it. It's like anything else, like on our map, it's an offer of dedication to the town. That's just the language used.
Yeah, that's presumed. I
Correct.
think unless you say otherwise on
So
the
the
map.
exactly, so the village, though, wouldn't have to accept it? That's something, the dedication is, it's offered, and whether or not the village accepts it. Is that something that was discussed, though, with the village, and they said they were?
Yeah, it's designed for dedication and designed to village spec. So what I would say is that if it's never finished, our section would never get a CO because we don't have access to a public thoroughfare. And we would end up taking on the finishing of that road in the village.
Plus the village should have a performance security
That's
to
right.
complete the road within the village,
Correct.
Right.
just
'Cause
like the
there- 'cause
town
there
will.
Whether
are-
they do it or not,
Well,
but,
there's an existing lot that will be using that road.
Yeah.
So if it's half started, it's got to get finished.
right. So, again, I think it's just contingency plans as far as what's the alternative if for some reason something
never
goes,
finished.
something goes awry.
Yeah,
And-
no, I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, that to protect you, protect the residents there, and to ensure that there's access, and if there's not access, there has to be the contingency.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be that we probably will assume finishing the construction of the road. We don't have a choice.
You could see if the village has some public security, public improvement security agreement, or whatever the approval requires, and that might be a starting point.
'Cause I don't, I mean, I believe you could just assume construction of it if you had to, but I don't know, because you,
I mean, if it's private
someone else's private
property,
property
yeah.
until it's offered for dedication, so you'd have to
Or
get
until
an
it's
agreement.
accepted for dedication.
Well,
Yeah.
right now, it's created as a right-of-way. Okay, so what'll happen is if the developer abandons the project, the right-of-way, then it goes up for claim, essentially.
Because the lots have already been created,
Created.
because the subdivision has been filed.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay.
Or it becomes a paper street, is how those usually end.
Or the village could take it and
Correct.
improve it themselves.
Correct. Which I think will happen because there's an existing house off of it now. So that would have to happen.
Ashley, did you have, was there a lighting district? Because you mentioned there needs to be a drainage district. Was there going to be a need for a lighting district? I thought they had one
But there is now,
street.
there's only the one street light proposed at the end of the cul-de-sac, which is consistent with the town's current lighting policy.
Right,
So there wouldn't need to be there would need to be a lighting district if they were going to propose additional street
okay.
lights.
So just the one, it doesn't need it. Who maintains it then? If there's just one, the town will maintain it?
That's the town.
Okay, okay.
Or we don't put one there. It's, we don't have any objection to either way. The houses will have standard residential, porch lights and probably yard lights, so.
Ashley?
And just for purposes of seeker, I know you had reviewed the Part 2 a few meetings back, but you didn't actually fill it out or answer the questions. I don't know whether you wanted to do that tonight or...
Let's go through comments with the board, and then we'll poll them or we'll just maybe hold it all till the following meeting and go through it all and just make sure we've covered everything. So I'll start down here. John, do you have any comments on what was submitted? Okay. Jeff?
No, I do not either.
I do not as well.
Okay. I looked at the cross-section, and I think the dwellings are still going to be visible above the tree line, which is why I think that, because ultimately, unless the landscaping plan, provides enough screening, I'm not sure that it's going to be fully screened. So I think that's why I'd really like Karen to get her comments back to us, because I also don't want it to be based on a plan. If Steve Esposito worked on the plan, I have some confidence that, he put the,
Thank you.
he did the landscaping and he considered what should go there, et cetera. But, I definitely want Karen to vet it.
Sure, and, well, you'll see in the landscaping plan, that Steve clustered trees, I guess deciduous and evergreen, along that sightline profile. So I think where we're narrowest is where he did it, so,
Put it in there, right?
yeah.
So I think that's it. So I think the focus of our next meeting should be really almost exclusively on seeker. The traffic impact, so do we have a traffic engineer or not really?
A relatively minor report that was submitted. You know, it's 15 residential units going in on a dead-end cul-de-sac. So, and it's noted that Scunnamunk Street's already an A, and it's not affecting it, you know, letter-wise. So, you know, it's up to the board if you want to have a traffic engineer look at it.
I think the only question I have, my concern isn't with the 15 residences, because those aren't a lot. It's where they join into the street. I know there can be a queue sometimes coming out of KJ. I don't know how far that queue comes back, and I don't know whether they considered that. And I don't know that there's much that can be done about it,
Yeah,
but I don't know how far back that queue may go, especially like on a Friday night.
So, yeah, actually, I noted on that in the traffic study. They did take that into consideration, and essentially, it's predicated on the idea that people coming down Scunnamunk will courteously let people out periodically, as people do. You know, it's the only real way to account for that. But they did say that it could, well, they probably will at times, back up
Yes.
that far.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's just real.
Yeah.
At the end of the conclusion, he comes to that. He says that the queuing will come back from that intersection. He does note that this is part of a larger, I guess, scope going on with the 208 Business Center in the village.
Yep.
And that our project has been included in that scope of the traffic there for build-outs, and that if that intersection is ever improved, then it will improve that queuing.
Okay. All right. Yep.
All right, I have one
Sure.
more item. You had asked me to reach out to Monroe Woodbury Schools for school pickup. They said they will not normally go up a cul-de-sac road unless there's a special needs child that does need to be picked up at their home.
Yeah,
So,
that's kind
and
of
that-
common for a school district. They don't
Right.
always go up cul-de-sacs.
Sure. So that somewhat affects whether or not the board wants sidewalks on the street, you know. It is a cul-de-sac, and the reason I want to bring it up is because it will affect the SWIP.
So when you're coming off of Scunnamunk, if they're not going to go into the cul-de-sac, that means they're going to stop on Scunnamunk. So if they stop on Scunnamunk, what is the village design as far as, is there anything there?
No, there's no sidewalks, just,
Sidewalks on Scunnamunk either.
no.
Right. All right, something to ponder. There are other streets in the town that don't have
Yeah, I mean, there's not
sidewalks that
much-
are rural.
Not much that we could do. Could approach the applicant in the village and ask him if he wants to put in a bus, like
Like a pull-off.
shelter or pull-off or something at the end.
Yeah.
That'd be about it, because I don't see them wanting to add sidewalks if they got it approved without it.
I think we'll have to follow up with the highway superintendent, what the policy is of the town and buses going up town roads. Like, I know town road, there's school pickups and whatever, and I assume that buses can go up and down town roads and cul-de-sacs, et cetera, but I don't know if there's any policy or expectation as far as, if a vehicle can get up there, I assume a bus can get up there too. And if it had to, is the cul-de-sac turnaround adequate? Yeah,
After speaking with the school district, they won't go up cul-de-sac. I wouldn't expect one to go up the road and have to turn around.
right. Well, I want to be, yeah, all right.
It would make the cul-de-sac radius if it had to. It's designed to take the largest fire truck that you have, so,
So if the
could-
radius is large enough to handle the school bus?
yes.
Okay,
If you
a
got it
school
there.
bus,
Yep, standard school bus.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Did you have anything you want to say?
I'm just looking at stuff. Have to look at that.
Okay, anybody else? That's it? So let's plan on you coming back for the workshop in August.
Okay.
And then we can focus again on seeker and kind of pull everything together and make sure we've covered everything. And then hopefully we'll hear back from Karen She can get very busy, so sometimes you have to, you know,
Then, and we'll, hopefully we'll have our wells,
and the wells will be tested, so that,
Right.
yeah, because that's part of seeker too. And then I think we could focus on architecturals only from the perspective of, you know, are the colors muted and fill, you
Yes,
know,
so
go into the,
we did give you a list, I think, of different colors, but I'll bring the samples in. Ashley had mentioned, so we'll bring in the samples and the colors so you can see them.
okay, perfect. All right, so we'll see you in August.
Yes,
Thank you.
Very good. Take care.
All right, next item on the agenda, Meadow Hill. Got it right this time. Welcome.
Good evening, Board. My name is James Rugnetta, and I'm from Peters, Zach & Fowler Engineering, presenting Meadow Hill.
Can you just spell your name for the record for the minutes?
And I asked that.
Last name is Rugnetta.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, so a little bit of information about the project. It's located on the northwestern side of Lakes Road. It's a 13-acre lot that's going to be broken down into a 6-lot subdivision. Each lot has a portion, the remaining portion of the lot is going to be a conservation easement, and each portion of the lot is going to have part of that conservation easement. Each lot is going to have its own individual well and septic, and currently we're coordinating with the town hydrogeologist for well testing on lots 1 and 3. And we are seeking preliminary approval on the project so that we can submit it to the health department for soils testing.
Before Sean starts, we usually start with our consultant's comments. I had at one point in time been in communication with the planning board chairman in Chester, because I believe there was another development going on that you might be representing right there.
Yep.
And at some point, they were talking about a potential future trail connection that I believe might be going through that other project site, and that might be somehow accommodated on this one. Is this familiar? Do you recall this? Because my conversation with him had been a while ago.
Yeah, that might be something we have to look more into and
Okay.
talk to them about.
Okay. So we should just follow up with Chester. And again, because I think they were trying to get the connection to, is it the Appalachian that goes across lakes? Right. And so I think somehow they were trying to get, and then there are trails up on what used to be another project, Camp Monroe?
Monroe.
The Camp Monroe site. So I think that got acquired.
That continues on from where the Appalachian Trail bends off the ridge and comes down to Lakes Road. The trail continues along the ridge line, but it's not Appalachian, but yeah,
Right.
that's what you're.
So I want to say, my recollection is that somehow they were going to link that property through this one out maybe to Appalachian. So, again, I just don't want that to fall through the cracks, so I want to mention it. All right, so Sean, why don't you start? I'll bring up your comments. Which number is that? 18.
Last time this was before Mark was, I have to thank Ashley for help.
I'm going to actually just close the program. Yeah. Oh, everybody can see the comments.
So, I don't think the plans were updated since the last time the board saw them, but there's been, some updates, including the wetlands and Dave Tompkins is reviewing the wetlands to confirm, his field visit that was back in April, was it?
Yeah, it was, I believe it was April.
Yeah. We have to wait for him to, let us know about the wetlands, but the bulk table, since this is a cluster, the lot sizes are reduced, but some of the dimensions can't be reduced per the code, namely the lot width and lot coverage, which are currently proposed to be reduced in the bulk table, so that'll have to be addressed. A lot of my bullets in number 3 are just kind of clean up. Do you know right now if you're anticipating the disturbance to be greater than an acre?
I don't believe it is, but we can look into that.
All right. That you're scheduling tests, septic tests for Department of Health?
Yeah, we would like to. I do, by any chance, do you know if you need preliminary approval to submit to the health department to schedule soils testing?
Mark had noted that.
Okay.
That'll probably have to be done once we square away the lot sizes.
Okay.
Health we talked about, the applicants providing rain gardens for each of the rooftop runoff. I just question whether or not that'll have any effect on the septics, and the soils and their absorption rates if those rain gardens are proposed. So if you want to just take a look at that and see if that could be mitigated. We'll need, I believe there was preliminary comments from Orange County Department of Public Works. I don't know if you had responded to those regarding the access for each of the lots.
Yeah, we'll look into that
Okay.
as well.
This is a scenic buffer highway, so it is noted on the plans. They actually note for the most southern lots, I forget if that's 1 and 2 or 5 and 6, for some clearing to be done within the limits to increase the site distance. So, that's currently under review by Department of Public Works. And then 239 referrals, I think we did get some preliminary comments back from them, but we should probably refer it again if the lot configuration does change. And then, all I have at this.
For cluster subdivisions, we still need those house relocation notes on them, right? I don't know if I saw that on there. Okay. So we'll just need to add those. Ashley?
Sure, so for purposes of seeker, you are already the lead agency, you declared your intent, no one objected, but I would ask that the applicant provide a revised EAF, because the version I have, it's from, I think, 2018, and that was for an 8-lot subdivision, so this is now the 6-lot cluster, which is a different plan. The board does have to complete seeker before you could issue any approval, so I don't know about what type of, it's formal preliminary approval that the county requires for soil testing, or if it's more of a.
Yeah, I think they actually
Referral.
may need a preliminary
Okay.
approval, so we'd have to do our neg deck before we even open the public hearing,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
As Sean noted, the county planning department did issue some initial comments, but that was only when the sketch plan was referred, so we will need to refer to them with a full statement, so everything that we would need for purposes of seeker. I think there were some things on the EAF mapper about endangered species. Also, of course, well test, SWIP, that kind of stuff would have to be part of the seeker determination. I think Sean touched on the bulk table, but just if you could make sure you put the actual requirements for the RR1 so it's clear then what you're seeking to reduce under the cluster regs.
Now, Sean, you mentioned that you can't go below a certain size for the cluster. Some of the dimensions, did you just mention that?
Yeah, sorry, the lot width and the lot coverage
So-
cannot be reduced.
Does that mean that we have to do some kind of waiver, or is that a problem from a variance perspective?
That would be a variance.
Okay,
So for single-family homes, you could reduce the minimum lot area. It could be reduced by 50% of what is otherwise required for a conventional lot. So here there'd be half an acre, and then the minimum yard requirements, you could establish those. So there's no restrictions on those, but there's no ability to waive the lot coverage or the lot width. I think those were the two that stuck out that the applicant wasn't meeting.
Okay.
I don't know whether there's anything else.
are you all aware that you needed variances?
Well, when we go back with checking out the lot coverage and the lot width, we'll decide whether or not we want to go through with that.
Yeah, I don't recall if you were right at the 50% for your open space, or if you had more than 50%.
I believe we have more.
So you might actually be able to,
Might be able to.
okay.
One of the notes on the plan, note 15, about no further subdivision. So the cluster regulations require a note that says no further subdivision of clustered lots is permitted. Note number 14, I think, could be modified to address the scenic buffer and what's required, the maintenance obligations for that scenic buffer off of the Lakes Road. I did see there was a tree plan. It hasn't been revised, but there was initially a tree plan submitted. I think, Jeff, I had some notes from when this was discussed last time that you had asked for certain trees, 22, 24, and 26, to be preserved. If that's something the applicant can do. The tree plan needs to show the limits of disturbance. It has to be referred to the Monroe Conservation Committee. I don't know, I think it may have been originally. I don't recall any comments from them. I see Ward's here.
Yeah, I think it was. I think you all walked Meadow Hill and you wanted to, I'm referring to Ward, because you wanted to go out there with Dave Tompkins, the wetland scientist. So I believe some members may have gone out at that time. Yeah, I thought so.
I think there's some comments on the wetland
Yeah.
review, but I don't recall any comments specific for the tree plan.
Did you issue on trees, or not that you recall? Okay, all right, so we still need to get that then done, okay.
There's other requirements. If you could go through the tree law, that's 5784, and just look through, make sure you're showing everything that's required. There's specific map notes about the penalties that are required. I could send you the form language that others have been using for that. And as far as the conservation easement, it'll have to be held by the town board or an agency that's acceptable to the town. So you'll have to work that out with the town. And as Bonnie had mentioned, I did speak with the town of Chester supervisor at some point recently too, and he had mentioned that whether there could be a budding adjacent, or a budding rather open space that could connect to the trail. So that's something to look into. That is,
Do we need a drainage district for this with the type of facilities? There has to be either drainage district or some kind of maintenance agreement, I would think.
If the rain gardens are to be proposed, then yes, we would need a maintenance agreement for each of the lots, but not a drainage district, because they wouldn't be dedicated to the town.
And lighting district, I don't know that we need. This is a county road, so, the town's not going to be involved in lighting on a county road. Just trying to think of some of the districts. So those are the typical maintenance districts. Hydrogeologist is going out there. We need to
Right.
still hear from Dave Tompkins, whether that was all addressed. I think depending on the outcome of the site distances and what Orange County DPW requires, you may want to send it to Karen, just for the buffer screening. But let's see how much can be retained, whether there needs to be enhancement. And I think, again, it comes down to site distances and what Orange County DPW requires. All right, is that it, Ashley? Okay. So we'll start on this side. Pat, anything?
On your mic, please.
Just questioning why the houses are kind of close to the road, given the lot size, they could be set back more. which would create a greater potential for screening, buffer zone.
Yeah, we did a tree survey there, and there is pretty high dense, like there's a lot of trees there. So we believe that since all those trees are going to be preserved, the houses will be decently screened from the road, but we can look into pushing them back.
I would
If I
think,
was living there, I'd like to have more yard space, I think.
yeah, maybe centered on the lot a little more. I think it depends on the well and the septic too, and
Yeah.
your separation
Yep.
distances, but, to Pat's point, you could look into whether it can be situated a little farther back. Okay. Jeff?
But I guess the comment on the other side of that would be, if part of the reason that the houses are located where they are proposed at this point is because that's going to allow for more preservation of the existing trees on the rear of the lot, and those are good trees worth preserving, then, that might be the other side of that argument. So, but I wasn't clear looking at the plans about the limits of disturbance that was proposed, and Ashley mentioned about that, and actually one of my other comments. I kind of have more of a question for our consultants. I was reading the Town of Monroe, Chapter 56, about the wetlands, and I'm trying to understand the relationship between that and, so what's on our plans, all the wetlands are delineated Army Corps of Engineer, and what I'm trying to understand is, what the Corps provides for as wetlands, does that always correspond to the Town of Monroe and our requirements, or could there be different borders of the wetlands or wetland buffers based on the town code? And should we be seeing that on the plans?
I think that's a question for Dave.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm not a wetlands expert, but, the Corps has standard requirements, hydrology, soils, and groundwater depth. So that's what classifies as Army Corps wetland. The town, I would think, would be pretty close to that, but
There are some times where they will also need some type of permit under the local wetlands law, so that's something definitely Dave will or should look at. We'll make sure he's aware of that as well. Sometimes
thank
they
you
do
very
have
much.
greater protections, or things that don't constitute federal regulated wetlands fall under the town's own jurisdiction.
Thank you.
So I will say that this was looked at when we were doing the comprehensive plan, and there is some ambiguity with regard to, in some cases, what is actually regulated. But if you look at some of these, the information that's in here, or the definitions, and they talk about facultative wetland species, hydric soils, those are all the requirements that Army Corps looks at. Essentially, those are the same parameters which define an Army Corps wetland. And I think that we end up regulating within a certain distance the wetland buffer. And so here's the wetland buffer definition: determined to be the area generally extending 100 feet horizontally away from and paralleling the wetland boundary, but can be greater or less than 100 feet were designated by the approval authority based on site-specific conditions relating to topography, slopes, soils, et cetera. So unlike the Army Corps, our local regulations allow us to regulate activities within 100 feet of a Army Corps wetland. DEC is different, but Army Corps. So we'll need to, if it's not shown, we definitely need to see the 100 feet around the wetland, and then determine whether any activities are occurring within that area, so that it can be reviewed by the wetland specialist. So,
Yeah, that was the definition in the code that I kind of keyed on, the 100-foot buffer. And so that's what I was wondering, if we should be seeing that on the plans as well.
yeah,
Okay.
it's definitely, if you look at past subdivision reviews and approvals by the planning board, they often had to also issue a wetland permit, because invariably seems to be wetlands in many sites.
thought that's what I was remembering, and I just wasn't sure how that applied in this situation.
Yep.
Okay.
John, do you have any comments?
No, I do not, Bonnie, thank you.
Okay, so I think those are the comments for now. Good night. So, do you have any questions?
Nope.
So I think it's just continuing follow-up. We should probably check on seeker. That has to get updated anyway, the EAF, and make sure that we've covered everything we need to, and then kind of get back to the other consultants and see where they are in their review so we can tie any of those loose ends. But I think most importantly, you need to come back to us to see whether or not there might be some adjustments to avoid variances, or whether you'll have to go off for variances. So, thank you.
Thanks for your time.
I have one other question.
Sure.
With regard to, it's really the comprehensive plan. Is there anything in there, you have a 55-mile-an-hour road out there, Lakes Road, at that location. Is there anything requires a certain setback because of that? Because it's close to a 55-mile-an-hour road?
So the road wouldn't regulate the setbacks, just the zoning itself.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of playing in the road, dogs, stuff like that. It's just from a safety point of view, it doesn't seem.
This is the RR1 district, which is generally the larger lot, 1 acre minimum lots.
Right.
So, which are, some of the larger in the town.
Yeah.
I think by virtue of the fact that we are doing a cluster, it's making them smaller, so, although I think there's some limitations on this particular site to pushing the houses back, because they're dealing really with a narrow strip of land, on which to site the houses. So, although there's some depth to them, it looks like. I don't know what the minimum depth is of some of those lots, but are they like 200, 150? Do we know?
I can come back with that answer.
I don't know if you have to scale them off, or if there's any numbers on, any dimensions, no?
Bounds.
Oh, no meets and bounds, okay. We'll need that too.
Eventually we'll need it.
Eventually on the final, yeah. But just in response, Pat, generally the setbacks, distance from a road, isn't necessarily set by speed. However, whatever's in the code in terms of yards are minimums. And if there's a good reason to have it set back farther because of those types of concerns, that's within, I think, the purview of the board if they make that finding. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night. Eagle View Estates. Good evening.
Hello, everyone. I'm sure you know who I am, but
Your name for the record?
absolutely. David Nimatko, we're the design professionals representing this project, and we're back after a few months of doing further research and further design development on the site. I'm sure you realize from our cover letter that we did change some aspects of the site. After the last meeting, we researched the possibility of tying into the sewer system. That's not happening. The I&I impact associated with Mootna Basin and their capacity needs to be resolved. So that's no fault of the owner, it's no fault of ours. It's just happened. We were vested into this project probably a year and a half prior to that letter, doing a lot of work. Yet as a result of not being able to tie in at this time, because there will be a future time where Mootna Basin will have its capacity satisfied and allow tie-ins, you investigated the design of septic and wells for the system, or for the three houses. The Walton Terrace lot is a pre-existing non-conforming lot. It will not accommodate a septic and well because of the distances associated with the surrounding neighbors and with the two other lots that we're proposing. The lots along Lakes Road, lots 1 and 2, we did test and perk the site, and it was perked well, and we're able to show a septic design and location that meets the code and is satisfactory with the surrounding, distances with the surrounding neighbors, along with the wells in each lot. We would ask that the board just consider this as a temporary solution to a time when the lots will be allowed to tie in to the existing sewer. It's not the intent of the original design to use septic and well. Our intent was always to tie into the sewer system, and we would appreciate if the board could consider that and allow the septics to be a temporary solution during that time. The owner or developer is willing to put in the sewer system all the way up to the tie-in, so that the neighbor or the houses would be conditioned or bound to tie in once that becomes available. So the current septic system that we show, again, would be temporary until that tie-in is allowed. Based on that premise, and based on the fact that we got Orange County DPW approval for the shared driveway off of Lakes Road for the two homes, all the hydrology studies that were done on this land, and everything else, we would ask that the board just consider this and allow the process to continue based on that premise.
So we'll go into Sean's comments and Ashley's comments, and Ashley may touch upon some of that, and I have some questions with regard to that path, as far as what's allowable and what has to be shown on the map. So Sean, why don't you start then?
Sure. Most of my comments are really clean up. There's a lot of carryover from the last iteration of the plans to the current. The biggest one being the bulk table. The bulk table in the RR1 zone has different requirements whether or not you have water and septic. Water and sewer versus well and septic, or a combination thereof. So when a septic's proposed, the minimum lot area is 1 acre, and they're currently subdividing a 1.12 acre parcel into a half acre plus or minus each. So that will require a lot area variance for each of the lots at a minimum. There may be other variances necessary for lot width or whatnot, but as currently proposed, it would have to go to the ZBA for a minimum lot area variance. Really, that's the basis of the review. So,
Ashley?
So as far as seeker goes, at the last meeting, you did declare your intent to be lead agency. A notice of intent was circulated, but the ZBA was not included on that list, so you wouldn't be able to assume lead agency status until the ZBA consents. So I'll have to recirculate to the ZBA in order to do that. But as far as the variances, trying to mention the minimum lot area, I believe from what I saw, lot width and the side yards also don't meet those separate standards that apply when you have a septic and well. Lot width is minimum 125 and side yards 30 feet one side, 65 foot for both. And I don't know whether that's something you could revise the plans to avoid the need for. I mean, lot width, that would be tough, but the side yards, maybe that is something that could be done. I did have some comments too, just for clarity. It's no longer a lot line change, so there were some references, for example, on C1, the list of plans, the title of C2 refers to the lot line change. On sheet C2, that also refers to a lot line change. The area table and the zoning table on C2 and C3, they refer to that, or they include lot 61, but that's no longer part of that, so it shouldn't be there. the lakeside parcel is shown separately, but it's really not a separate parcel. It's part of the lot 60, so that should be clarified in the zoning. On C3, it says that 3 homes are proposed, note number 1. So now only 2 homes are proposed. That'll need to be changed. Talked about Lakes Road as the scenic road, so the scenic buffer notes, that's going to be required. As far as the trees, what's being removed in the limited disturbance, and then the one-to-one replacement. But I mean, obviously, the threshold issues here are the variances that would be required in order to have this layout go forward.
I'm just bringing up the table for the applicable zoning district. So this is the R15. SR15. So this is where you could see where the standards are, that if you don't have central sewer, if you're not able to connect to central sewer, then it's 1 acre. So I don't know if you were aware of the need for the variances, but.
I mean, the whole premise of the design was connecting to the sewer system. Oh, the whole basis of the design was based on connecting to the sewer system. I mean, we have a sewer system that is approved by Moodna Basin and their consultant engineer. I mean, it's engineered, it's fully designed. It can be installed, according to their approvals. That can be, without question, included in this. I mean, that's why we'd ask the board to really just consider that. I mean, I believe you have the basis to do so. We're not asking for the septic system to be permanent. We're asking for it to be temporary in nature.
Yeah,
Town has no control over when that sewer capacity is going to be available. It could be 50 years, so.
I mean, that means every piece of land within Moodna Basin, again, within the town of Monroe, that's less than 1 acre won't be able to be developed.
well, it will be either at 1 acre or it'll be developed once their issues are addressed, so
Well,
I don't know
if
what,
it's less than an
I don't know
acre,
what the
then it
timing
would have
is.
to be a sewer connection.
Yeah, I mean,
We definitely have exceeded the burden of proof with this matter, that we can do that. It's not a fault. If you refer to, say, the ZBA comments, and the 5th comment, is it self-created? I mean, this is one particular case where we don't have a self-created issue. This is definitely was imposed upon this project late into the design process.
yeah, I think the only thing that I can express, and we'll get everybody's comments, but as a planning board, we don't have the discretion to, unless it's explicit in the zoning, to waive the standards for the bulk table. Only the ZBA has it. And if in fact this isn't created, then you have whatever is required to make your rationale in front of provide your rationale in front of the ZBA, your argument. But to my knowledge, and I think that's why both Sean and Ashley are referring to it, I don't think we have the ability to waive it. And this is certainly something that's coming from an outside agency. We were on a path with regard to your property. My quick comment on this is it's unclear to me whether you're showing 2 lots or if you're showing 2 lots that you're building on and one that's kind of hanging out there without any sewer, home, or water on it. Because I think if you're, I don't know at this point that you can include that as a separate lot. It's a question. Without either showing that it's developable or, for the time being, merging it into one of the lots, and then when the sewer's available, going back to the way that it was subdivided. But it's a general question I have. I don't know that you can show a lot that's there
So that's
it's
an
part of the
existing lot.
application,
It's an
yeah.
existing lot, but that's why it shouldn't be part of the application, because it
Yeah.
really isn't. It's just an existing lot, and under the current way the code has a provision for undersized lots and whether they could be developed, and that wouldn't meet that standard, at this time, because it is adjacent to land that's in, that's in the same ownership, or that was in the same ownership at the time the zoning law was amended. So I think there would have to be, some kind of note that that lot at the time, if this is approved, that lot is not approved as, buildable lot. But it's just an existing,
Or just take it off.
yeah.
I think the easier
Yeah,
thing,
just-
so long as it's not in some way creating a non-compliance with another provision, I think the easiest thing is to just take it off, because then there's no question. And then show that you want to subdivide that 1 acre, lot and go from there. But I think we need to look at the other provisions to make sure that we're not,
I don't believe you have any automatic merger
Provisions.
provision.
Okay.
But I'll take a look just to make sure.
there
And just
there are,
to-
there are some codes that have merger provisions, automatic ones, that if it's in the same ownership and you have an undersized lot, you're automatically deemed to have been merged. So we want to just research that, because if that's not the case, then I think we could just probably work with this one lot. But Ashley's going
That's
to
a
check that.
two-lot subdivision versus, the other lot's not relevant. The fact that it's in the same ownership is that's just a circumstance, but it's not relevant to the application. And just to touch to, as you had said, that the sewer issue, that was something that came from the county and not from the town, that letter, came down in 2020, I think, whenever it was in the fall. So that's not something that this board imposed any kind of additional requirement on that. I think that's something you could certainly present to the ZBA as far as why you think you meet the area variance standard, that balancing test. But this board, you are correct that you don't have any ability to waive those bulk provisions.
I think that, I do think you have to go out to the ZBA, because ultimately, if you have septic and you can meet septic on those lots and you can meet the well requirements, then really, why would you want to connect to the sewer, unless you absolutely have to?
Well, I think that connecting to the sewer is the desirable. That's the first, connecting to the sewer would be the first option, I think,
Right.
Always.
Right.
So if there's a sewer system available, it's been my experience anyway that you're almost compelled to hook up to it.
Right.
Some municipalities won't even allow you to do a septic, if you have sewer capability.
Right.
And,
I don't-
we were under that under that proviso since 2018.
Yeah. And I think that is typical, especially if you're in a district, that the intent is that you connect where it's available. But this, again, this is a situation that came down from an outside agency, and they are really directing us in terms of what can and can't be done with regard to the wastewater in this instance. The other thing I wanted to ask you is, it seemed like the rear yard, there's a lot of grading going on behind the dwellings, and I was wondering why that was all necessary.
If you'll take note of the driveway outside each garage, the area is very big. That was a requirement of approval by Orange County DPW. So if you look at those areas outside the garage, you can almost turn a van in it. And to meet that requirement, we had to do some more grading in the back to swale it around the houses and away from that shared driveway.
So they
Not on your mic.
was it your preference to have side-loaded garages? And that's okay, I'm just curious.
No, and yes, but what also aided in that decision was the profile of the drive. We were able to make it more shallow and get up to the garage.
Okay.
If it was on the side, so that worked out really well.
Okay. Those are my, the comments. My reaction was mostly just why all the grading in the back. And it may be that you want to create flatter yards, but I was just curious because it seems like there's a lot of grading going on. Jeff?
Great sleigh riding hill for kids.
Yeah, you're gonna just have to put a fence to make sure they don't go down the lakes.
I better yet, let us put up 2 houses there right now, and that will block the sleds from going down.
So I had a similar observation, and I was wondering if part of the reason was to make flatter rear yards, although it doesn't appear that that's going to be the case based on the grading. I mean, I understand now why my question was why, what was the advantage of that, and you've explained that. I did, it might seem minor, but it seems to me like the line of disturbance down by the road, on the lot where the old gravel driveway was, the line of disturbance bends kind of sharply towards that old gravel driveway, rather than following what seems like it would make more sense to me. There's a proposed silt fence on that diagram as well, and it would allow more preservation of the scenic buffer if the line of disturbance was there. I was wondering what necessitated that, if I may.
I believe, and, haven't focused on that aspect of it, but to get the site distance needed for the drive at that time, we had to excavate and grade the embankment along that lot and then further on along Lakes Road. That increased the area of disturbance so that we can grade down and get the site distance that eventually became acceptable to Orange County DPW.
That was my question. And I didn't note in the plans, and maybe I missed it, where we were shown what trees were going to be removed from the site. If I remember correctly, and I've only really examined the property from the road, is other than along the road, it's fairly open, the property. There's not a lot of trees back there, so like the grading that you're doing, you're not going to be removing trees there, I don't think.
No.
But just to get the driveways in and the site distances?
The site distance associated with the location of the driveway.
Right.
Yes.
So I just think we need to see what trees are going to be removed, under our tree plan, and, what kind of mitigation there's going to be to that.
We could come back next month for approval on that without question.
Yeah.
No? Come on.
I'm just gonna try and bring up am I in the right place? In my recollection, except down by the road, there isn't a lot in the back. So the grading that you're proposing isn't really taking out trees, per se.
It's not.
Is this part of Lakes a scenic road? Because will they have to do some landscaping after the fact, the 25?
Order.
Okay, so we'll have to do some landscaping, but we understand this is subject to Orange County DPW, and they're gonna want site distance there for sure.
Yeah,
I think it's just
You know
more
what,
maybe some select trees outside of it.
And it would have to be beyond their scope of work.
Yep, understood.
Not to be,
No, I understand.
yeah, I'm not
Yep.
changing anything that they approved. So
No, I
that-
understand.
That was,
Yeah, the driveways are just beyond a kind of a tough curve coming around that bend in the lake. And yeah, if you don't have good sight distances, it's going to be a problem for everybody. So
won't be a tough
it's a
curve
safety
anymore.
thing that,
yeah, it won't be anymore, after we excavate that down.
Or you could just come off of Walton and then have a shared private driveway up to a point and then have the houses at the top.
Well,
Septic's gonna be,
if we.
Yeah, that's right, you have to pump it up then, right?
well,
Well, you still have to pump it up,
how
don't
are you
you?
gonna configure the lots to have the septics meet the requirements? Because that's the narrowest part along.
Yeah, but,
Walton.
but the septic is, I mean,
Are
if you're
the-
willing to waive the lot area requirement, then, yeah,
Are-
we'll relocate the houses. and put
Are the
You're saying two
septics,
lots
are the
or three
septics
lots?
forced? No, just two.
Oh,
Are the
then
septics
he loses,
forced?
then he loses a lot.
No,
Yeah.
no, they're gravity fed.
They are gravity fed?
Yeah, they're in the front.
Isn't the hill going up, though?
Yeah, so you have
Aren't
the
you going up?
road, the septic, the house, and then the well.
How is that gravity?
The septic is below the
The
house.
septic's in the front yard of the
Yeah.
house, towards Lakes Road.
Yeah, but I thought the front of Lakes is lower, there's a hill going up.
Yeah,
So isn't the house higher than the
then the
septic?
septic, yeah.
So how can it be gravity? Oh, I'm sorry. Never mind. Never mind. It's been a long day. Oh my God. Sorry. Never mind. With that, I'm going to pass it on to John, if Jeff's done.
I am done, thank you.
I have nothing to add.
All right, Pat?
Yeah, is this close to the old Walton Lake Inn? Is there a stone house just to your left?
Yeah.
Or that's not part of the property, right?
Not part of the property.
Well, this really doesn't have anything to do with planning, but my dad and my uncle in the 20s, 30s, and 40s used to ride over there on their horses. That was the watering hole for the town of Monroe.
Ah,
So, has a lot of history there.
awesome.
Give us a lot area, we'll put that watering hole back in,
They weren't drinking water.
and we'll add a fountain, make it, have a little pizzazz to it.
So for the backyards, because it does feel like it's a hill and it's remaining a hill, to a large extent. Did you think about, and I'm just curious, putting in retaining walls or anything to give you a little bit more?
I mean,
Usable.
quite honestly, Bonnie, that is so minor in comparison to everything else.
Okay.
I mean, quite honestly, I mean, the cycle that, this project has been through is, just incredible. Well, cycles, to be plural. So, I mean, retaining some, retaining walls to hold back some earth in the back is so minor in comparison to everything. And we could develop that as a condition of final approval, once we get to that point. But right now, I mean, I think everybody has to agree, we were handed an insurmountable, it wouldn't be a curveball, it'd be almost insurmountable. And now hoping that the board would, could base their approval on the fact that we would be hooking up to the sewer system and just using the septic as a temporary solution.
Well, actually,
It's
let
really
me,
something to present to the ZBA, though,
well,
and
so,
not this board.
so let me ask you this. Does anybody know, in your conversations, what the time frame for Moodna was, with regard to connections? Do we have any idea what's happening and why there's no connections right now?
Number one, because the town's over their allocation for Moodna,
Right,
within the Moodna sewer shed.
right.
Timing of the expansion at Harriman, I'm not quite
Yeah, I have
sure about.
no idea, yeah. And whether the allocation changes, I mean, I don't know how that's all
That's
gonna
true
play out.
too. That's true too.
And the reason I'm asking is if this was something that was gonna be a year, I don't know that we can do this, I'm just throwing it out there. Is it possible to do an approval based on hookups, subject to, but then they just have to wait? But then I think their subdivision timeframes, even after you approve, that might kick in, that would get in the way of hanging on to an approval for too long. And I don't know what the
you-
I don't know if you can go design something if the agency has said, but we're not going to allow you to connect.
Yeah, I think you need to show that there's an ability to have the sewer service, and if it wouldn't really be concrete or, firm that they're going to have it, I don't think and then there's additional approval, you have the time frame to then satisfy 180 days, 6 months. You could keep extending those, but it's kind of it could go on, I think, indefinitely at that point.
And I think another big issue is the fact that I think that there are projects in front of yours that were probably promised allocation even though they're now already above what the allocation is. So I think there are some projects that have been in the town that have been extended through approvals that were promised allocation and that will get first dibs. And I don't know what, if anything, Monroe would get in terms of additional allocation. It's all a big question mark.
I'll tell you, I have to say, I appreciate that point. But I mean, who has first dibs on the sewer? I mean, these two lands have been paying sewer tax since the beginning of time. I mean, they've been paying for, decades, if not half a century, of sewer tax for both lots, the one up on Walton Terrace and the current one that we want to subdivide. So if anyone has first rights to hook up to the sewer, it should be this project, let alone any others that are in the queue or have been promised allocation. I mean,
I don't know
in this particular case, money, does speak volumes on this particular case.
Yeah, I don't know what the nature of those sewer charges are, because I know anybody, I think, in the district has a certain probably amount of charge, and then people who are actually served have additional charges. But yeah, I don't recall. Once upon a time, we had studied that for the comp plan. So I think at this point, does the application have to get referred to Ben in terms of making a determination, or does the applicant, can they go direct to the ZBA?
Refer them to the ZBA because there's only area variances involved.
Okay.
So if that's something, though, do you want to go for, right now, I think it is the lot area and then also the lot width and side yards. Do you want to go with what it is as proposed, or?
Well, I need a little time. I want to just research the side yards to see how that impacts the project. So, yet, we're not going to delay it or hold it for a long period of time. We'll do that research quickly. So what means of communication can I have with this board to let them know that either we're going to revise the house location or leave the plans the way they are and please proceed?
I mean, I'd like to come out of this just generally referring them to the ZBA. We know you're going to have to at least have, a couple. And then whatever others may be needed, you can get, we'll figure that out, and Ashley can write a letter to the ZBA about, from our perspective, what we think.
I could write the letter once, if they're going to submit, something new based on what I see there, and say, if they see anything else, then that's, on them, but.
So what I'll do is maybe I'll just send an email to Noreen. She could pass it along, just saying, yes, we're going with this, or please look at, pass this on.
I think it could just be, this is the plan I want, referred to the ZBA.
Okay. Sounds good.
Is that acceptable to?
Sure. So should we do a resolution?
You could just authorize me to refer the applicant to the ZBA upon submission of the plan that they want referred.
Should vote on that?
Sure.
So I vote on what Ashley just said, which is that you are referred to the Zoning Board of Appeals, subject to Ashley, you providing further information and Ashley confirming what those variances are. She'll write a letter to the ZBA describing why the referral is occurring and why the variances are needed. So that's my motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Noreen?
Bonnie Franson,
Aye.
Jeff Manson,
Aye.
John Allegro,
Aye.
Pat Shea.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Before we hit minutes, Ward, I know you've been sitting here. I just want to see if you want to report on anything with regard to Conservation Commission and any follow-up with projects. Great to see you. You haven't been here for a while.
Yeah, I had a surgery for hernia.
Oh,
It sort of evolved into a complex operation.
oh,
I had 3 hernias instead of 1, so let's do everything back. So I'm still getting into the swing of things.
okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you for
being
asking.
here, and yeah.
Quick question on Meadow Hill. Has that been revised again since the last plans we had? Okay. because we did have questions on that 100-foot buffer, that those lots were infringing upon that, many sections of that.
Okay, on the wetland buffer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they
And
need to show that.
And that's the main thing between, you touched on it, between Army Corps and ours. We basically, when it was adopted in 1990, we used Army Corps for their designation. The wetlands buffer was a little distinguished because we required a 100-foot buffer.
Right,
And over the years, that has been a bone of contention, many projects,
right,
how you interpret that buffer.
right.
So that's a sticking point with the members, senior members like myself, because some places we ran into a lot of trouble.
Right. Well, and I think it's a little bit, the discretion, because it talks about can be larger or smaller. And so, you probably, I'm sure it was done so that you could think about the area that's contributing to the wetland. In one area, it may actually, not contribute. There may not be a lot of buffer that's contributing to it, while another side may have a large area. If it's a vernal pool, and a bog turtle's there, that area that you might want to consider a buffer would be larger. So it was very discretionary.
There was one major, we considered on the Conservation Commission problem, and that was when you read the definition of a buffer zone, and it said, and I'm just paraphrasing as best I can remember, it said the purpose of the buffer zone is to protect the wetlands, not to protect the buffer zone. It's poorly worded. It's
Right.
very confusing. And some planners in the past have used that and say, well, you can't protect the buffer zone because it says buffer zone's not protected. No, but the purpose of the buffer zone is to protect the wetlands.
Right.
So you restrict activities that are going to be infringe upon the wetlands.
Right.
But then they would step in and say, but you can't, but the buffer zone is not protected. It's poorly worded, and then
Right.
every project we ran into, it took a major amount of effort to try to clarify that point.
Yeah.
So that's where I always get a little scary every time I see these wetland interpretation with the buffer zone.
So for Meadow Hill, you haven't looked at the trees yet?
We didn't do a tree. We looked at the wetlands.
Okay.
And then we back in, like I said, right after Christmas
Okay.
with Dave, and then we found that where the trees were cut down, or some were cut down, and one large tree was ring drilled, and probably herbicide was put in there. So we saw that, but we did not do it with a tree count or anything.
Okay, so that still needs to be done.
And when we get Karen's report on going back on the trees for Scunnamunk,
DG man,
yeah,
okay?
we could, when you guys get that, we prefer.
Would like to take a look at it?
We would appreciate that.
Okay,
That's it.
all right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank
Thanks
you.
for being here.
Thank you.
Be well. So with that, Noreen?
Yes, I thought Tony was here for it, but he left. We didn't decide on a tech review since town hall's closed on Fridays. We were trying for a Wednesday, but you had asked for more information on Monroe Commons, and then I went on vacation, so I don't think we ever got a decision on when to do this, but Yiddy calls me every day.
So this is a tech meeting with regard to the EIS or the project?
The project, they had given, I can't get into my email, I'm actually been knocked off tonight.
Okay,
General site plan issues, so I don't know.
They didn't specifically give me details, but they want to come in and meet with you before they come before the board again.
okay.
So is everybody available the 28th, Wednesday, to do it in the morning? Sean's
I'm
saying
going to be
no.
away.
No,
Okay, that's fine with me, so I told him, we have another project that came up, and this is the one that I thought Tony was gonna be here about. I don't know whether anybody recalls the A&A Cycle Shop on 17M and Snoop Street.
where is it near?
Okay, you're all looking at me like I
Let me see if I can find it.
We're waiting for the punchline, yeah.
yeah, so am I. So, I don't know whether this has their,
Oh, there we go. Okay, hold on.
this doesn't, no, he didn't give me, oh, it's section 25 -3-9 if you want the SBO.
Okay, so it's across from Loyal Tire?
Yes.
Oh, it's where the chiropractor is, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So, okay, so that
God, I thought that was
building
like a
used to
driveway.
be a motorcycle thing.
Yep.
Okay, so now he has some other businesses in there, and he has some violations from our building department. And Mr. Snoop is not 100% understanding as to why he has to come back before the board, because he's been doing this since 1981. So the other,
Used to be
that's,
the headquarters for the State Patrol for many years.
Oh, okay, for the state police?
that's new too.
Okay.
So
I've been to that chiropractor.
there's been a gentleman doing used cars out of there.
Okay.
So there's an issue with the parking, and I grabbed a copy of the violation letter, which, okay, is totally Greek to me, so.
Does Ashley have a copy of that?
No, I only got it right before I left the office today.
Oh, okay.
I mean, she's more than welcome to take that one. I have it in my email, and I can send it out. So I was called upstairs Tuesday morning when Tony was with Mr. Snoop and the current resident, Richard Hernandez, I believe his last name was, and Mark Van Etten from the building department. They were discussing this property, and they're saying that they have to come before the board for site approval for the parking. So because they're not 100% sure what they need, and I suggested possibility of a tech review, and Tony agreed that they should start with a tech review to see what they need. Tony was going to reach out to you, Bonnie. I don't know whether he has spoken with you or not at this point.
He had. Now that you're describing it and you mentioned this, we talked about it. So I think we just need to come up with a date for a daytime tech meeting, and whomever who wants to
I don't know
appear,
what's going on with
so
my
long as we don't
computer.
have a
I'm gonna have to
quorum.
serve it 5 times.
If you want to attend, you can. And, right, yeah, as long as as long, as long as I mentioned that, as long as it's not a quorum. And then we can have Monroe Commons.
Yeah, we'll do
And we
everybody,
could do
just-
this one. We'll do
Yeah,
this
I
one
guess the
first
only
and then
question
Monroe.
with that is whether you think, and depending on whether you want to get more information from Monroe Commons, if any of the other consultants should potentially be there, depending on what issue it is.
Yeah, I think we should find out maybe they could give us sort of an outline or an agenda of what they want to discuss so that we know who should be present. Because if it's purely site issues, but even with site issues, we still may want to have
I think it depends.
one of
yeah.
the outside consultants. So I think we need to find out what they want to discuss.
I'll get in touch with you in the morning.
And then Mr. Snoop, I think we just need to find out more about, maybe we could make a copy of that and then,
I think if Ben could maybe write up a summary as far as what is approved
Well, I
at
think
the
Mark
site,
is
what
working on this, and I'll have
Okay.
him.
Yeah, however, if the building department could kind of give a summary of what's there, what that's there is approved, and what is not approved that needs approval, because it wasn't really clear from
Going
the
on
notice
for
of
a while.
violation. Yeah.
Because they came to me 3-4 months ago for an application, and he was very upset that I was gonna charge him all this money, and I said, I'm not doing this. And then he had Mark, he was all up here, and he was very upset with us, and he left, and then I hadn't heard anything until I got called up into the meeting the other day. And it was a different man, so I was surprised, and then Mr. Snoop walked in, I'm like, oh, this is the same project. So, but then today, on my way to work, you see that other little building?
Yeah.
Okay, go
Taylor
back.
is, or no, in back of that?
It used to be the Seams to the Taylor,
Yeah.
down on the road more?
oh, down there.
Yeah. I don't know, can you see that sign? What does it say? Oops. No, it's, okay, there's a different sign there today. So on my way to work this morning, I drove past it, because I usually go the back way, and I went down 17 today, and the sign says J-Class Motors, which is who this Mr. Fernandez is, or Hernandez, but I thought that was supposed to be up in the upper shop, not the lower shop.
Wait, is it Mr. Snoop or Mr. Hernandez?
Mr. Hernandez wants to do the used car lot,
Okay,
but I thought it was up in the upper building there,
okay.
but now the sign for the auto thing is down by the lower building. So I told Ben about it today, and I haven't heard back
So
from them.
this says J-Class Mortars on it.
Right, but there's another sign.
And I know the barber's there for sure, and I know the
Right,
chiropractor's there.
chiropractor's there.
Yeah, but I never paid attention to the back, what might be happening on the
Right,
property.
so now they're
Dealer's
saying
sign, the
parking.
dealer sign's on that lower portion,
Dealers,
on the
you think
straight up.
that sign is for, but it looks like he has his own sign.
Now, this other little, not that house.
That's a different property, I
Yeah,
think.
that little house, the little front one.
Yeah, that's the Taylor. Or
Right,
it
well,
was
it's
the
not a Taylor anymore. And I swear, unless I was, there's an orange sign that says like J-Class Motors in front of it today. That I didn't notice last week.
Maybe they decided to go somewhere else.
As of Tuesday? No, they've both called me twice.
Or maybe it's just happening in two places.
Well,
But
that's what-
regardless, if he's there, so I remember with this conversation with Tony, and one of the questions was, do we have a change of use provision in the code? There used to be a change of use that it could be determined by the building inspector, remember? I don't recall if that was taken out, because I think at that time they wanted it taken out.
Certain use classifications, where if it's changing within a certain classification, certain things trigger planning board review.
Was it
I wanna
under
say
site
any
plan?
different commercial use. Do you know what district it's in? I think it's based on district.
So we had here, site plan approval, any special use permit, any use in the NBGB, LI, HI, or BPO zoning district, any non-residential use in a residential district, and then we had a change in the numeric use group classification involving any use listed in subsections A through C above, expansion of any use listed in A through C above, any building permit application proposing a change to location, size, or bedroom count of a building or structure. So this says a change in the numeric use group classification involving any use listed in A through C. So if it was a building used for one thing and it changes, they only have to come in, I think, if the actual numeric classification changes. So for instance, if you go from retail to retail, that shouldn't necessarily trigger a site plan.
But I think, 'cause that's one of the things that George Lithgow has always commented about, that when our zoning got changed and up in the park by Target,
Yep.
if any of those stores changed, they always had to come back for reapproval, whether it went from Altered Beauty to Sephora, they still had to come back because it was a different company, even though it was still retail. And I know that was one of the things that George had mentioned, that why do we have to keep coming back for every tenant that we have to come in? So that's my recollection. I don't know the code well enough to.
Yeah, my recollection was that we could waive the site plan map. So we got rid of that building inspector, discretion. Instead, we put in here, planning board waivers of a site plan map submission. So they still had to come in and get some kind of site plan approval, but if it was literally just reoccupancy and we made these various findings, then they didn't have to submit a site plan. We would just approve it, so now we have on the record that we approved XYZ. So it's a way of making it easier to address a change of use occupancy, or a change of use.
Do that in the town of New Windsor, we call them discussion items. Does it rise to the level of needing site plan approval? The board makes that decision. If it's a no, the minutes go in the file that no site plan amendment wasn't necessary.
Yeah, because I think even with a retail to retail, for whatever reason, it may be that the one retail needed X spaces, but then the next guy comes in and he decides he needs to add like 50 more spaces because of the unique nature of that use. So this was kind of ability to give the planning board the ability to say either you need one or you don't need a site plan application. So,
There's specific standards. When you could waive it, it's 5750.
So this gentleman doesn't have a survey of the property except from 50 years ago. So, before he went out and did all of this,
This is Mr. Snoop?
yes.
Yeah.
We thought it would be best for him to do a tech review and find out what he would need, and did he need a full site plan approval with all of the bells and whistles, and that's why we thought the tech review would be a good thing for him
Yeah.
to start with.
Because it may be that we find that based on what he's doing, we'd have to go to the board itself, but it could be
Right.
that he doesn't have to prepare a site plan map.
Right, so that's why I suggested it, so then we just need to come up with a date when you three are available, and I can get the conference room
Right.
or this room, it doesn't matter which one we use.
Okay.
So
So we'll, let's circulate.
I'll circulate in the morning, and then if
In the
we
morning,
can-
find out what date, and
Yeah.
then whichever planning board members that might want to attend in
Right,
the
I'll
morning.
get, well,
Again, so
I'll
long as we
do
don't
you
have a
three
quorum.
first.
Okay.
And once it's decided amongst you three, then I'll add it to the board, just because I have to get you three down first, and then I have to let the applicants know. But I will ask Monroe Commons for more information, so we know if we have to
Yeah, who
invite
has to
any of the other
attend.
consultants to the meeting.
Okay.
That's fine.
Definitely, the building department, someone from there should be here for the Snoop meeting
Okay,
with kind of a history too of whatever they know about the property and the
Yeah.
uses. Do you want
Because
to,
I definitely don't know the history of what's been operating there, or, who's there.
there've been
and-
some permits supposedly and some non-permits.
that's
Bonnie?
really going to drive what's,
So, this, somewhat in jest, but I'm just thinking does this rise to the level of recusal? If I have I've known that family for quite some time. As a matter of fact, his mother used to babysit me before school. But Marge Snoop, who was a fantastic bowler, by the way, she was like the champion bowler in Monroe before they burned down that place. But
It burned down, or they burned it?
well, being close to Greenwood Lake, when they changed the drinking laws, a lot of things used to burn down around here.
Funny. So I think recusals, and Ashley can really speak to it, I think it comes down to, do you think you would be able to still objectively, make a decision?
Right.
And if you felt that you were swayed in some way because of the fact that you have some relationship, then, and if, it's almost like if you feel uncomfortable, it would be best for you to recuse yourself. I mean, if it's familial, like your sister or a brother, then it's getting
It's a definite, yeah.
that's starting
if
to get a
it's
little too close.
financial, so if you're,
Yeah.
in business with the person, that kind of thing, that's,
Right.
and, you definitely have to recuse, but if you're able to, remain impartial, and you could just announce even, for the record, I know the family, but it's not gonna at all impact my decision, or if you think it is, or just for appearances, that's, up to you, whatever you wanna do there.
Yeah. So if it comes before us, then you can decide what you'd like to do, okay?
Bonnie, did you wanna?
Also, the property is right next to my grandmother's house, too. That house, you had it on the thing there before, just a little bit to the right now.
Here? Oh, this one? Ah. Isn't Lisa Felicissimo in there now?
The lawyer,
Yeah, that's Lisa. Yep. Wow, it's like history. All right. Ashley, were you going to say something?
Want to figure out dates now?
I think Noreen's
I'm
going to
send an email
circulate.
first thing in the morning,
Yeah.
and
we'll
then if
pick a
everybody
date.
can respond so that I can get back to Yiddy and Mr. Snoop and
Everybody else.
Mr. Fernandez, watch this.
All right. So I think all we have is our minutes now.
Yeah, but we don't have,
Do we have everybody to be able to do that?
not all of them.
All right, let's see. So Ashley and Sean, if you want to head out, you are welcome to. Let me just check.
So April 8th, John was not here,
So we
so
can't
that
do
leaves
that.
3, we can't do that one. Everybody was here on April 20th, so the 4 of you can make the decision on that one. May 13th, everybody was here, and May 18th, you and Anthony were out, so we don't have enough for that one.
Okay, so you said May 13th we were all here?
April 20th and May 13th, we can do tonight.
All right, so I just brought up the revised May 13th. So I already sent in my comments.
I'll send that stuff out
Good
in the
night,
morning.
thank you. Did anybody have any revisions? I'll scroll quickly through. Yeah, is the revised one. What's happening, Iris?
Keep losing internet, I'm knocked off.
View. Those two, Cirrus and Eagle View. And what was before then?
At Raywood and Yolstor.
Joel Stossel, yes. And the Raywood Drive, with Joel. So, if don't hear any, proposed modifications or revisions, I'll make a motion that we approve, the May 13th, 2021, planning board minutes. May I have a second?
Second.
Noreen?
Bonnie Franson.
Aye?
Aye.
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 All right, and then what was the other one, Noreen, that you said?
April 20th we could do.
April 20th.
Those were emailed a while ago, before even the
Yep.
June meeting.
Verizon. And J squared. That was a short one?
Yep.
All right. So we approved a whole bunch of minutes that evening, too. Would someone please make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
So John makes a motion to approve the April 20th, 2021 meeting minutes. May I have a second?
Second.
Pat seconds. Noreen? Aye.
John Allegro,
Aye.
Jeff Manson,
Aye.
Pat Shea.
Aye.
And with that, the minutes are approved. So just remind us, we'll have to put on the agenda the ones that we couldn't approve this
I'll
evening.
carry them over.
And then we'll need June's and July's
They'll be done.
for August. Awesome. Okay. So with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting. May I have a second?
No.
All right. Oh, no, was that
I
two?
move.
Now we're in trouble. May-
So moved.
Pat? Second, all in favor, say aye.
See, I could vote no again and keep us here.
Yeah, we'll be in trouble. Aye.
Aye.
All right. With that, motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.